Hey there and welcome to Tactical Breach Wizards. My name is Pete and today we complete a first look at a game that, well, if the title alone does not intrigue you, the fact that it's a tactical turn-based game centered around wizards with guns unraveling a global conspiracy plot might pique your interest. Players familiar with XCOM and other games like it should feel somewhat at home here, although Tactical Breach Wizards puts a bit more emphasis on story, and while it is not voiced, the dialogue in this game is fantastic, and you can also level up your characters to earn new and powerful abilities. In terms of combat, the game is perhaps a bit less dynamic compared to XCOM, and thus feels a bit more puzzle-ish at times, but I feel like it more than makes up for it with what I found to be rather challenging missions, especially on those higher difficulties, which in true completionist fashion we are of course going for right from the start. Tactical Breach Wizards comes out on Steam on August 22nd, so if you like what you see, feel free to give it a try. And with that, let's get into the heart of things. This is planned as a one-off video, but as always, we'll give it the full completionist treatment, so we will be playing on the hardest possible difficulty, and also try to unlock all possible achievements in these first few missions that we're going to play. Also, I think it goes without saying that if you enjoy the game on this channel and want to see more of it, feel free to leave a thumbs up and let me know. This was certainly not planned to be the XCOM 2 successor, but it very well could be. Now, as you can see, I have an existing save file already, but that's mostly to show you that for now the game limits you to a single save file, so a little roguelike element here, although you are able to freely replay any mission you have already completed, even if the save file has already been overwritten, and you can even play those missions that you have not yet started, so if you want to, via this menu right here, you could immediately jump into the game's final encounter. Obviously, we are not going to do that, but I believe it's a nice feature if, for example, you want to skip the tutorial mission for your second or third playthrough. We, however, will be playing through that short tutorial, don't worry, it's not going to take long, and so let's start a new game. We can select one of 3 difficulties here, of course we will go with hard, and unfortunately it doesn't actually give us any more details about what these settings actually change, at least not right here. That would perhaps be something to put in here, as that info is in fact available in a menu that we'll visit later. I'll show that to you in just a second. For now, let's confirm hard difficulty and get things going. So, very important here, we are beginning things with a flashback. Wiztag, this is Mage Actual. We're in position, suppression hex is online. Trauma control charms up, breach glyphs are hot. Alright Zan, what's Foresight telling you? I'm seeing 3 Sprig Acolytes, softwood silenced Mag-10s. Want me to leave you one? Alright, so forgive me for not doing voices here, I'm not really good at that, but we do in fact have an actual dialogue system here, although from what I can tell, it's mostly for flavor and story exposition. Your choices, at least in the early parts of the game, do not influence how the story or the missions play out. If you want to, you can also skip the entire dialogue sequence here and jump straight into the action. Once again, a lovely feature for those who are on their second or third playthrough. Finally then, a quick character intro. You may remember the guy on the left from the menu screen earlier. His name is Zan, he is a wizard and apparently possesses an ability called Foresight, allowing him to see the enemies in the room ahead of time. That Foresight ability will actually play a huge role and is one of the game's most distinctive mechanics. More on that later. For now, let's reply and get to it. Well, if you're losing your touch, sure, I'll pick up the slack. Alright, let's do this. And this is where Tactical Breach Wizards, designed by Tom Francis, gets its name from. Left you an easy one, Zan. Wow, patronizing. Right, so here we go into the action, and as we learn about the game's basic controls, we can also learn about our partner Liv Kennedy. She seems to be exceptionally quick, and the text box in the top right corner here confirms it. She moves on a different timescale than the rest of us. For now though, we can't control her and can only issue orders to Zan. Now, before we talk about actions and movement and all that stuff, let us actually talk about difficulty again, because if we head into the menu here, we can learn a bit more about what that actually means. Hard difficulty, for example, means that enemy reinforcements arrive sooner and are more numerous. Enemies also deal more damage and we are more limited in what we can do. However, also part of hard difficulty is normal team health. Of course, we can't have that, so let's cut that in half, effectively making this the hardest difficulty setting you can play at. In order to apply that change, we also need to restart the level here, but through the magic of editing that's quickly achieved, and so we can now finally start going to work on our first encounter. Now, as you can see, the enemy ahead of us has 2 hit points. Zan also only has 1 available action, his 3-bolt burst, costing him the one and only action point he has. Now in the top right you can see that 3-bolt burst only deals 1 point of damage, however it does have knockback. And so that 1 tile of knockback immediately pushes the enemy out of the window, so let's get moving. Movement in this game can be done at any time, but it can only be done once, so you can't split your move, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. There are also plenty of actions that don't consume an action point, like using the laptop here, which then completes our objective. Now at the bottom of the screen you may have also noticed a curious rewind button. We'll learn more about that shortly. What are we doing here, Liv? They've got us raiding a Druid Mafia smuggling ship. How is this a military op? You know I don't ask those kind of questions, Zan, and you know I sleep better than you. By the way, for a bit of background info, just ask all the questions that don't have a move on at the end. On the topic of who we're extracting, a young adult male, what do you want, his dating profile? You can ask him if he likes long walks on the beach after we stop the shrub mob flaying him with a barrel cactus. So you're good with using force in the Meadowland waters? Go in quick and clean like I taught you, and they'll never know who hit them. I feel like that didn't address the substance of my question, but I guess it's not the time. I guess we're not finding out in the corridor. Right, so what's behind door number 2? I see 4 hostiles, more sprigs and an elder shrub lord. You good for 3? I'm good for 4, but I'll let you feel useful. That was only 2. I'm letting you blossom. By the way, I really like how they're doing the sort of credits in the background there, although I have to admit I completely missed this the first time I played this mission. Now, to slightly get ahead of the game here, we can already use the laptop even though we are told to shoot the enemy, and we are told to target the one that we can't take cover from, which is obviously the one right next to us. Once again, the knockback here takes care of them, and now we learn about cover. Essentially, anything we can hide behind can be used as cover, and doing so will completely break our enemy's line of fire. If we then end our turn, our enemy also won't move, at least this kind here won't, and so let us now take them out once again using our 3-bolt burst. No, they are not standing right next to a window, but right next to a wall, and if they hit a wall, then any knockback is taken as damage, and that's enough to deal with 2 hit points. And there we go, the room has been cleared, time to keep moving. Alright, what's next? 2 sprigs and a great oak in a ghillie suit. The great oak is wearing a ghillie suit? It is, yeah. Isn't it already a tree? Look, I just say what I see. Well, let's get in there and kill it. Breach! Right, so at this point we appreciate Code by John Winder and learn a bit more about the game's 3 phases. The action phase is essentially where we make our moves, spend action points, shoot things, that kind of stuff. The foresee phase is happening after that, but only if we click the foresee button in the bottom right. That is what I meant earlier, with Zan's special abilities kind of taking center stage mechanically. In any case, the foresee phase is essentially the enemy turn, but we're not committing to it yet. Why? Because both during the action and the foresee phase we can hit the rewind button. For example, if during our action phase we move Zan up to the laptop here and then hit rewind, we will go back in time and act as if that move never happened. And I find this to be a lovely mechanic, quickly allowing you to learn what your enemies are capable of without taking any risks, and as a core gameplay mechanic it is in fact always active regardless of difficulty setting. Now, after shooting the one and only enemy for now out of the window, the foresee button becomes grayed out, because in fact no one is planning to do anything else this turn. So let's end our turn and see what happens next. Right, so we've got reinforcements. The shrub lord here has 4 hit points. Nonetheless, we are told to attack them, even though that will certainly not take them out. I can't take him, can you dodge this? Well, you're the one with foresight, you tell me. And yes indeed, we now get to use that foresee button for the first time, allowing us to find out whether or not Liv would actually survive the enemy turn. Okay, looks like she would not, but that's okay, we can always rewind. So let's do that, and not just once, we'll actually click the button twice here to get back to the start of the turn, and then we are told to move closer to the enemy, as this particular type of enemy here will in fact always shoot at the target that's closest to them. Alright, I'll take the hit, but you owe me a mending vial after this. Now, at this point we could still use our action to take a shot, but again that won't kill anyway, so let us simply foresee what happens. Okay, Zan takes the hit only for 1 point of damage, but that's half of his hit points. Bigger picture though, the Shrub Lord is dead and we can now end our turn. That's the beauty of the foresee phase. If you happen to get an outcome that you like, you can simply commit to it. No need to go back to officially end your turn and see it play out a second time. And with that, all of our objectives in here are in fact now completed, so let us proceed into the next and final room. Alright, intel said this is where they're holding the asset. You see him? Yeah, they've got him bound and bagged. Don't you feel something weird coming from him? No, but then I can't see the future, I can only move infinitely fast. Maybe I'll feel it for all of these 0 seconds I'm clearing the room and extracting him unharmed. Don't rush this one, Liv, there's a wildcard in that room. I'm a chronomancer, Zan. I'm just saying, if something goes south, you know your orders, the asset is the priority. If you have to blink him out of here yourself, you do it. Liv, did you just admit you could fail? Are you okay? I'm just indulging your insecurities, Zan. Stop clutching your crystals. You're gonna breach this year? Right, so as was heavily foreshadowed, Liv has run into a bit of trouble here, as she is currently being held in place by some tentacly creature. And this now presents a bit of a dilemma for Zan, who can only fire once per turn and has to make a choice, save Liv or save the hostage. Now, thanks to the powers of Foresight and Rewind, however, we can simply try out both, and we'll start with that extractor creature, which may have a sizable health pool, but it's not immune to the danger of falling out of a window. So that would be Liv saved. Let's see if our enemies actually decide to shoot the hostage. Right, so that's not good, and Liv here in fact asking us whether or not we saved the asset. Well, not exactly. So then, let's rewind and undo that mess. Perhaps as a chronomancer moving faster than time, Liv will be able to save herself after all, while we now take aim at the hostage taker. And once again, let's hit that foresee button to find out what happens next. Right, so looks like no matter what we do, we can't save them both. And remember what Liv said earlier, the asset is the top priority. Not to mention that the game also explicitly makes the hostage's survival an objective here. So it looks like our choice is not really a choice after all. On the enemy turn then, we have reinforcements coming in through those red doors. Those, by the way, will be important later on, keep those in mind. And once again, one thing is clear here, we can't kill 2 enemies in one turn. Veska to Wiztag requesting immediate blink out. I have the asset, but something got Kennedy. And that blink out is now in fact available as a free action to us here, so if we wanted to, we could still spend our action on shooting someone, but as you can see, dealing only 1 point of damage, that won't get us anywhere. And there we go, that's the first level of the first act completed, and we also unlocked the Tinker achievement for doing it on a custom difficulty. And with that, the flashback is over and we jump to today. So let me get this straight, a notorious druid mafia enforcer gets shot by a doctor, and the first person on the scene just happens to be the meddling witch every cop loves to hate, Jen Kellen, PI. And yes, indeed, that would be the person on the left here, Jen Kellen, a private investigator, apparently meddling with the affairs of the Rushwater Police Department, and definitely not shy when it comes to snazzy comebacks, so let's go with this one here. Being near to locations is my passion. What is it going to take to stop you inserting yourself into every missing persons case we investigate? I mean, you could try finding the people. Well, I'm sorry if solid police work sometimes takes a little longer than your witch's tricks, but we have procedures for a reason. Doesn't seem like every case gets the same procedures though, does it? We are not getting into the Siegler case again, Kellen. We've said it all before. We really have. Alright, so you hear a shot, you burst in with these breaching glyphs, and you find Wexler already dead. Describe the shooter. White-haired woman, good-looking, smartly dressed except for the surgical gloves, and a gun. No, she put the gun down. And you went for it, even with all your spells and trinkets? It was more about her not getting the gun. And what happened? Well, she got there first, I'm dead now. Kellen. I got to it first. She seemed to reevaluate her situation at that point. She ran. And then you guys show up with a Traffic Warlock. And what's your problem with Sergeant Clark? He made me kneel even though I'd already dropped the gun, he picked it up without gloves, he tracked mud all over the scene, and he put a 2-week stasis curse on my car. It's gonna cost me more to get that disenchanted than I got paid for this whole job. Well, lucky for you, we're backed up and it's not worth the time to prosecute you for any of this. Prosecute me? But next time you call us, stay put, stay out, and leave your wand at home. So, did you get her? We have someone matching that description in custody, yes. Can I talk to her? Can you talk to the prime suspect in a murder investigation? No, Kellen, you can't. You are a PI, a provisional PI. Get out of here. Can you unhex my car, please? I'm not insured for temporal curses, you know. You'll have to take that up with Craft and Arcana Control. Fine. You're welcome, by the way. Unbelievable. Oh, hey, did you know that your station is on fire? What? You're too late to stop me. I don't know who you are. Oh, you're not Zan Vasca Navyseer? Nope, my name's Jen. Is Zan here? I don't think so. I haven't seen him in years. Ah. Well, prepare to burn. Oh, no, thanks. Alright, and with that, we are in the first mission of this second part of Act 1. Inside of a burning police station, a 2-hit point Jen Kellen finds herself face to face with a pyromancer, and our objective is to defenestrate them, a fancy word for just throwing them out of the window. Well, luckily Jen has access to Static Blast, which may not cause any damage, but it does provide 2 tiles of knockback. So, 15 hit points easily dealt with, and that's the area cleared. We are now introduced to these brief reports we get at the end of each zone. At this point though, I have to admit I'm not entirely sure yet whether or not doing well here does in fact have any impact. Alright then, Zan, I was just talking about you. Jen, what are you doing here? Solving a murder, how about you? Being arrested for... remind me? It's a list at this point. They think I'm part of the team raiding the station. I served with Zan, guys, I'll vouch for him. No one cares. You remember what it means if I give this signal, right? 1 second on the clock, I remember. That's enough, on your knees. Now. Right, welcome back, Zan Vasca. Looks like he and Jen have some history, and our task now is to save him from the police that we are working together with in some capacity. In order to do that then, we are introduced to Chain Bolt, an ability that once again provides 2 tiles of knockback, but it can target multiple enemies, albeit at the cost of 1 point of mana. For the purposes of this introduction, Jen has also just received 1 point of mana, that's the blue lightning icon next to her portrait, so let's chain up some lightning for a double defenestration. Well, thanks, sorry it came to that. Well, one of those guys kinda had it coming. And the others? Didn't know them, but they'll be fine. I cast Slowfall wards on the windows. And so, with enemy number 3 taken out by Zan, outside of our control for this first action, we have now completed the first objective. The second one we are already familiar with from the prologue. Now, by the way, my little completionist challenge for this video will be to complete these zones in as few turns as possible. 1 will obviously not always be possible, but I'll try to limit any unnecessary moves. So, how have you been? Not bad in any ways we have time to get into. How about you? What have you been up to? The team casting its way through the station right now is led by my former CO, Liv Kennedy. She might be the most dangerous person on the planet. I think she's trying to start a war, and it might be my fault. So, stopping that. Huh. Do you get medical with that? Nope. And it is becoming an issue. Listen. These guys didn't like me much before I defenestrated 2 of their colleagues, so we should probably get out of this building in the next 4 minutes if we don't want to stay here for 25 to life. What are we going to see when we open this? 1 cop, body armor, nightstick. Enforcer. They're tough, I suggest we try and put them through a window. You can't throw all of life's problems through windows, Jen. I do want to try throwing this problem through this window, though. Yeah, it actually might be the right call here. I'll have to come at him from the side to set you up. Take him when you have the shot. Ready? Breach. Alright, and in this 3rd level then we learn about redeploying, because if a room has several entrance points, then we can breach using any of those. And in this case, as we discussed, we want to bring Zan around to the side here, because as you can see, the Enforcer here is currently not standing in front of a window. However, after breaching, we can now hit them with Zan's 3-bolt burst, which, just like a few years ago, still deals 1 point of damage and 1 tile of knockback. Now that 1 point of damage is completely negated by the Enforcer's 1 point of armor, however, the knockback is still delivered, setting things up perfectly for Jen's static blast. And that would be yet another enemy thrown out of a window. Let's use the laptop here to clear the level. Alright, so far everything's still doable with just a single turn. As we have now reached the halfway point of this mission, however, that's going to change. Alright, so what does your former CO have against the Rushwater PD? I don't know. And what's her overall objective? I don't know. Who's she working for? Reactor. Great, and what's their objective? I don't know. So who was the fire guy I ran into earlier? He asked after you, by the way. Oh really? That's nice. No, I don't know who that is. Right, maybe we'll stick to Liv. How long have you been on this investigation? 3 months. Zan. Look, I'm a clairvoyant with an assault staff. I've never had to solve mysteries before. You need someone with investigative skills. Maybe someone whose career is in a temporary dry spell despite her obvious talent. Hey, I'm hiring if you're interested. What does it pay? Nothing, I'm broke. Well, that's actually very competitive with what I'm earning right now. I'll take a look at your files. Files, right. Zan, I'll make some. Never mind, what's up next? Another Enforcer and bad news, no windows. Well, that rules out every strategy I know. See, it's not a comprehensive life plan. Don't worry, I've got this. I can set up a shot that'll knock him flat if he comes my way. And why don't you just use that all the time? It's a time thing, you've got to set it up in empty space and hope they walk into it. Why? It's an amethyst-jacketed time crystal. It exists in all places along its trajectory simultaneously, so when you touch it, it's like getting shot in the past, present and future at a 4th time phase mortals can't perceive. And that makes you fall down. Well, that sounded cool, but didn't meaningfully explain anything. That's fair. Breach. Breach. Right, so setting a trap for the Enforcer here works by utilizing Zan's predictive bolt ability. This is essentially Overwatch, but you have to aim it in a specific direction. As you can see on the right, it also deals a massive 4 points of damage, and even better than that, it does not cost an action. So let's get this thing set up. Straight ahead here, the 4 points of damage will be enough to take care of the Enforcer with 3 hit points and 1 point of armor. The only issue now is getting that Enforcer to move where we want them to. Luckily, the game provides us with a little overlay in that regard, so if we move Jen over to this corner right here, we are informed that the Enforcer will go after her. And if that doesn't help, there's always 4C. And well, that worked out like a charm. Time to end our turn and begin the next one. So, remember how during that first mission I mentioned those red reinforcement doors? Those are back now, but this time around we can seal them. If we don't, then they will keep spawning reinforcements, 1 unit per turn until they run out, and that will be the case when the counter above the door reaches 0, at the moment it sits at 8. There is also an achievement in the game for preventing 10 reinforcements in a single level. As you can imagine though, for that you'd need to have more than 10 in the first place. Now, back to the action. Once again we are dealing with an Enforcer here, so we'd need to deliver at least 4 points of damage to take them out. Nonetheless, our first priority is to seal that door, which is once again a free action. By the way, on easy and normal difficulty, you'd actually get mana for completing objectives, like sealing these reinforcement doors. On hard difficulty, meanwhile, that's not the case. Now, focusing back on the Enforcer, we still have our action to hit them with a static blast. As you can see, that dealt 2 points of damage because they were knocked into an obstacle, and armor also does not block damage from those knockbacks. And that is also why we do not need to set up a second predictive bolt here. 2 standard attacks is all it takes to finish Zone 4 in just 2 turns. What's the plan this time? I don't know. Improvise. Inspiring. And yes indeed, the game quickly stops holding your hand even though new mechanics keep getting introduced. For example, one of the 3 enemies in this room is a sharpshooter who has already activated a strip of Overwatch right in front of them. If we walk into that, we will immediately get shot, so let's not do that. Nonetheless, let's breach. Now for the moment, Zan can't do anything, as we do in fact need him to move to clear this level. At least if we want to do it the way I have planned. There is in fact another solution to this. Feel free to drop that down below in the comments if you figure it out. Now onto the second new mechanic introduced in this level, Intel. That's what this blue glowing box on the desk here is. So let us move Jen adjacent to it and grab it, which then results in her gaining 1 point of mana. And that means we can now cast her Chain Bolt ability again. Conveniently enough, we have 2 enemies here with 2 hit points each, and they're both standing right in front of a wall. So, 2 down, 1 more to go, and the Enforcer here has already targeted Jen. The Sharpshooter's Overwatch has also been removed, which means we are free to move Zan, and so we can now activate his Predictive Bolt to take out the Enforcer as soon as they move. And there we go, that ends our turn and more or less completes the level. The only thing we didn't do on turn 1 is use the laptop to open the path onwards. And just like that, Zone 5 of 6 has been cleared once again in just 2 turns, which also tells us that we are coming up onto the end of this mission. Alright, this is it. The way out? It's on the way to the way out. Wait, so you haven't been leading us out of here the whole time? You haven't been following me, have you? I don't know where I'm going. I've been leading us to the one little thing I need to do before we can leave. You know we're in a police station where both of us are resisting arrest while it's simultaneously being raided by a team of Black Ops wizards, one of whom can transcend time. Well, I didn't know about the transcend time thing, but the rest of that was on my radar, yep. So where are we headed? This office leads to the holding cells. There's someone there I need to talk to. You're working a case? Now? Can we just do this? Alright, but it's a mess in there. You ready? Nope, but that's not gonna change. So, breach? Actually, we should probably think about where to breach. And yes indeed, this is it, level 6 of 6 featuring 5 enemies, 2 access points and 1 reinforcement door. Any of the hostiles in here can kill us with a single attack, but there are ways to solve this, and somewhat swiftly at that. So let's get to it. First of all, we want to redeploy both Jen and Zan over to the left side here. After we've breached, 3 of 4 trackers in the room are now targeting Jen, unlocking the Gunpoint achievement. We can see who they're targeting by following those red lasers. Now let's move Jen into the room 1 tile short of the intel, and then we'll use Static Blast to take out enemy number 1. Very important that we do it this way, because this now opens up the perfect spot for Zan. Obviously, he has no mana abilities, so we do not want to grab the intel with him. Instead, we want to shoot the tracker here, and the angles work just right to push them out of the window. So that still leaves 3 enemies standing. One of them, however, is an Enforcer, so they will come to us, and that means we can already lay down the predictive bolt. As you can see, Jen has also broken line of sight with the other 2 trackers, and so we can safely end our turn. Now, as you can see, we did have some reinforcements come in here, but their placement works out very nicely. A single shot from Zan will push them back into the desk behind them, dealing enough damage to get us the kill. and that now leaves Zan free to move right in front of the door, which we can now seal. And very importantly, the two trackers still do not have a line of fire on him. Now at this point, there are various ways to solve the situation. We will need another turn after this anyway. We also could have gone for the intel over on the right to use Chainbolt immediately to take out the two remaining enemies. Instead, we're now doing so on the next one. With 1 point of mana already in hand, Jen can move up to re-establish line of sight, and even though she can only see the first target here, that's enough, as Chainbolt can jump to targets that Jen cannot see. And there we go. I'm actually not quite sure why we are getting another move after this. Nonetheless, let us use the laptop now to clear this last zone. And there we go. It took us 3 turns. I'm not quite sure whether it's possible in 2. Either way, we have completed our first proper mission of the game. Hi, me again. Don't know if you heard, this station is currently being raided by a Spec Ops team, one of whom can transcend time, right, and much of it is also on fire. If you tell me why you shot Wexler, I can get you out of here before even more of it is on fire. How? Well, a breach glyph ought to do it. If not, 2. And if I don't satisfy your curiosity, you'll leave me here to die? Classy. Oh, don't be so dramatic, you'll probably be fine. What the hell just happened? I think you just met Liv Kennedy. I didn't love it. And indeed, there we are, our first mission complete screen of the game, even though it's obvious that our adventure has only just begun. Okay, I'm a lot more interested in your case now. Who is Banks, and why did the best Spec Ops team on the planet just assault a police station to abduct her? Dessa Banks. I caught a glimpse at her police file. They have her pegged as a mob dog for the Druid Mafia. When I found her, she just shot her patient in the head with a 45. If she's not mob, she definitely missed a pivotal day in med school. So why would Kennedy want her? Was she an especially good doctor? Well, I guess it's possible she's a great doctor, and shooting her patient in the head before surgery was just kind of a power move. Your turn. Who is Liv Kennedy? She was my commander in the Navy's Special Forces. She's a chronomancer. She can move on a different timescale to the rest of us, and you're dead before you know she's coming for you. Well, that seems overpowered. I served with her for 5 years on some nightmare clusterfucks, and I think Liv may be the most dangerous single combatant on this planet. Everyone who saw her work said it sooner or later. I'm glad she's on our side. Well, now she's not. Now she works for Reactor. So what's the story with you and her? We ran an extraction on a Druid Mafia smuggling ship back in '89. She got snared just as they were about to execute the hostage. I had to choose. I chose the hostage. For years I thought I'd got her killed, then 6 months ago she resurfaces pulling brutal heists for a PMC. I don't know what she's trying to achieve, but I know I failed her back in '89, and if there's some way I can talk her down from this, I have to try. Reactor are private military, right? Who's hiring them this time? Oh, private but huge, the 9th strongest military in the world last I heard. If you'd asked me yesterday, I would have said that they're the DSR military by another name. But if they're sending Kennedy to kill cops on DSR soil, something massive has changed and I have no idea why. If she's gone off book, all we are looking at is a god-tier operative becoming a serial killer with an unknown agenda. And if not? If today was a Reactor-authorized op, this could light the fuse for World War V. The whole geopolitical landscape of the Southern Hemisphere is gonna lurch in ways even I can't predict. And I'm a seer. Okay, we do need to make some files. I have a map. We can work with that. So then, welcome to the post-mission screen where we level up our characters. After this first mission, Jen has gained a level and we now have 1 perk point to spend. Unfortunately though, Zan just barely misses out. I'll also be honest, at this point I'm not quite sure yet what actually earns you experience points and how many. I ran some tests and always ended up with Jen getting the perk point here and Zan missing out, so at this point I'd have to assume that's intended. Now for Jen then, we are going to upgrade her Chain Bolt ability, allowing her to target one extra enemy. Having that ability is actually extremely important for her for the purposes of another achievement. We'll get to that very shortly. After confirming the upgrade, we can then also take a closer look at what Zan has in front of him. This also already reveals the ability paths we could take with him, and of course you can already see them grayed out on the right side here in the background. Over the course of the game, these two will not remain the only characters we get access to. Now the mission screen then also reveals how much progress we have made so far, and if we wanted to, we could also use this to replay missions we have already completed. And that brings us now to outfits and confidence. Confidence is earned by completing bonus objectives on missions, which we have not yet seen actually, and we can spend these confidence points to unlock new outfits for our characters. This is purely cosmetical, but there are some achievements tied to it, not to mention that a completionist approach would of course require that we complete those bonus objectives in the first place. And those confidence points and those bonus objectives are actually the reason why we will keep playing for just a little while longer, because that's where the game really gets going and starts to click for people. And for the purposes of a full first impression, I think I'd like to show that to you. This is your safe house. It's cute. Well, it's my Ma's place. She's at bingo. Right, well, here's what we need. Your map, a printer, some thumbtacks, and like 40 meters of red string. She actually might be the only person I know who has that combination of items lying around. I like her already. Let's get to it. So how does this work? You drag string between us to prove we're friends? And yes, that is in fact exactly how this works. A little mini game here to recap the story so far. In this screen we also get dossiers on every character and faction we have met. I'm not going to read them all for you, but feel free to pause the video if you'd like to take a closer look. We can also ask Zan for input on the individual connections we need to make. This first one here, however, is rather easy. The connection between Jen and Zan is that they're old friends. We also already know about Zan that he served under Liv Kennedy, chronomancer and former Star covert operative, believed to be dead, now returned and gone rogue. Liv and her allies then also led the strike on the Rushwater Police Department, causing the death of 14 police officers. Now, admittedly, we had a bit of a role to play in that too, but of course Liv Kennedy is still the main culprit. Now, we also know about Liv that she works for Reactor, a private military corporation that previously has actually worked for the DSR, only to now turn against them. In her strike on the Rushwater Police Department, Liv Kennedy also abducted Dessa Banks, former surgeon and now mob doctor for the Druid Mafia, and at this point we don't have a single clue as to why. Okay, so we have no idea why Liv took Banks. At this point I'd settled for where she took Banks. Oh, I can answer that. Seriously? Give me 6 newt bones and a vial of her blood and I can scry her location to within 3 meters. Okay, newt bones sound doable. Yeah, I've got an arrangement with the pet shop downtown. But how do we get a hold of her blood? Oh, the cops would have taken it when they booked her, part of a standard DNA log. It'll be at the evidence lockup in Stonecliff. And is that guarded? Heavily, but I know a guy there who owes me. I helped him find his skink last June. As long as they haven't heard about the clusterfuck at Rushwater yet, I bet I can just ask him. Jen, I think they heard about the Rushwater thing. Now they get efficient? Right, it's 2 versus 4 with reinforcements coming in, and for the first time we have ourselves some confidence goals. Each of our characters has one of their own. They are very much optional, but completing them gives us 1 confidence point for the character whose goal we just completed. Now Zan's goal here is to finish the mission with everyone at full health, while Jen would like to defenestrate 2 hostiles with her Gale Grenade. Yes, we keep unlocking new abilities here as the game progresses. This grenade can be used once per encounter and pushes back characters by 1 tile in a 3x3 radius. So, to hit the 2 guys standing by the window here, we need to move over just a little bit to the left. There we go, confidence goal for Jen completed, still 3 enemies remain. However, the Gale Grenade did not cost us an action, so we can use the Static Blast here to make that too. That brings us to Zan, who can first of all take out the tracker here, standing right in front of a wall, and then use his movement to advance up as far as possible. After all, we want to stop those reinforcements on the next turn. Now at this point, we could lay down a predictive bolt, but that would also mean we'd get shot at, so let us take cover instead, breaking line of fire and end our turn. Now at this point, we once again have 2 enemies left, but it shouldn't be too difficult to take them out. Let's move Jen over to the intel here to activate Chain Bolt, and we're going to use that to push back one enemy and take down the other. No third target necessary, but it's nice to know that we could if we wanted to. And with that, Zan can now quickly dispatch of the last target here, and then move towards the door to seal it shut. And there we go, that's the first of what are 3 levels this time around completed. And here you can also see it again, completing these bonus objectives has unlocked 1 point of confidence for both characters. By the way, replaying missions in which you have already completed these confidence goals does not earn you extra points. Alright, so what are we looking for? A blue folder. Her blood's in a blue folder? No, but her file will tell us where they're storing it. Okay, so just grab every blue file I see? Yep, unless your time brain lets you read them instantly or something. I can do 1 second of reading 1 second sooner than I otherwise would. That doesn't sound like it's going to do it. No. Breach? Breach. Right, so this here is the level that I really wanted to show you before wrapping up the video, because this time Jen's confidence goal requires that we deal with all 5 enemies currently in the room in 1 turn. Zan would also like to let his teammate perform 2 actions at 1 turn, and you may have noticed that he has gained another new ability in Time Boost. Doesn't cost an action, but does cost 1 point of mana, and allows him to give an extra action to any of his squad members. And speaking of squad members, let's start with Jen here and move her over to the door on the right side. And from here we will now throw her Gale Grenade diagonally across the room. This doesn't do any damage, but pushes the tracker back 1 tile, and that's going to be very important in just a second. In the meantime, we can get ready for the Chain Bolt, targeting first the Grenadier in the corner here, then, very importantly, not the tracker right next to them, but instead the second Grenadier, and then we'll finish it with the tracker as target number 3. So, 3 down, but 2 more still to go, and we have to take them both out on this turn. How do we do that? Well, let's breach and move inside with Zan next, grab the intel, and then cast his Time Boost on Jen. Very importantly, this requires line of sight, so that's something we have to keep in mind before shooting enemy number 4. And with that, we can now return to Jen once more, who, with her second action, can now use Static Blast. And there we go, all 5 enemies taken out, and we have unlocked the 1 Turn Wonder achievement. Again, for me, this was the moment where the game kind of started to click, and trust me, it only gets more complicated from here. Now, at this point, we do unfortunately have reinforcements coming in, 1 from each side of the room, and let's use Jen to take care of the one on the right side first. A simple Static Blast will do it, even though getting into the right position for it also means that we sadly won't be able to seal the door on this turn. And the same is true then for Zan over on the other side. Once again, in order to be able to deliver the killing blow here, we can't move right in front of the door. What we can do to end our turn though is to activate a predictive bolt, although the chances that reinforcements actually run into this are rather small. And indeed, here you can see it, both enemies are still standing, so same situation as before, although things are going a little better over on Jen's side, as the enemy's position here works out so that she can both seal the door and take them out. That also blocks off 7 reinforcements, we want to keep that in mind. Meanwhile, Zan essentially just repeats what he did last turn, taking out the tracker here and then activating Predictive Bolt to end the turn. And with 6 reinforcements remaining, Zan too finally gets lucky. He can now take this guy out without having to move, which means he can still move afterwards to seal the door. And with a total of 13 reinforcements blocked on this level, we now unlock the Radical Planking achievement. We also earn 2 more confidence points for both of our wizards, and I would say let's leave it at that. I think this makes for a good point to make the cut, and I hope I could give you a good first impression of what Tactical Breach Wizards is all about. Gameplay-wise, I am definitely intrigued, especially by these confidence goals. Again, I have not yet finished the game, but I will probably do so very soon. In total, the story is supposed to run for about 15 hours, so the later missions will most likely be quite a bit longer than what we saw here today, and browsing through the game's data files I found 128 files for different levels. Today you only saw 14, and I hope you liked what you saw. If you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up, and if you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course also go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.